Welcome back, my fans of the written word. September, it's already here. It's outside. It's raining, at least in my neck of woods. This is the first video in the September Space Opera Readathon, and as I mentioned in the previous video, but in case you haven't seen it, the Space Readathon was started by SFF 180 channel, and in a nutshell it has 4 challenges. First of these challenges is to read a space opera novella. I've chosen Troika by Alistair Reynolds. Alistair Reynolds is an author of a lot of renown, if you can say that. His Revelation Space space opera series is very well known and well regarded. Me personally, my history with him and his work is as follows. I really enjoyed his short stories, stories like Zima Blue and Beyond the Aquila Rift. They were recently featured and served as a basis for a few of the episodes in Love, Death and Robots anthology, animated anthology on Netflix. And I also read prior to that his Poseidon's Children series, and wasn't so crazy about them necessarily. I found them to be pretty dull, or maybe dull is unfair. The characters were certainly dull. The writing was very dry and disconnected. So, where do I stand on Troika? First of all, let's do a quick premise. The main character here is Dmitry Ivanov. He's a cosmonaut. He escapes a mental facility. He's running through the snow, and his goal is to reach a disgraced astronomer that was there, or at least worked at the time when his last and final space mission went awry. So he is running through the snow to reach her. He has hypothermia, and he hitches a ride. He rings her doorbell, and she reluctantly lets him in. So they drink some tea, as we Russians do, and he tells her the story of his mission, and he tells her that she was right. What was she right about? She was right about in her theory about the BDO, the big dog object in the sky they were sent to investigate. He also has a mysterious item that he carries in his pocket and gives to her. And that's pretty much it. The narrative is divided into past and present sections, and I don't want to reveal a twist or discuss the intricacies of the plot. It's a short-ish novella. Well, it may be a standard-sized novella. It's 100 pages or so, and that's about it when it comes to the plot. Now, how did I feel about it? Well, I have to say that I was left disappointed. And there are 3 reasons for that, mainly. First reason is the first point view. And the way it started was not very effective. I realized that differences between a short story and novella can be blurry, and even now when we have a novelette, which is something in between, but I do think that there is a way to structure a short story and to structure a novella. This was structured as a short story, even though it was much lengthier than one. And as a consequence, I think it suffered overall. Reason number 2, and this is a very subjective, well, like all opinions are, but as I mentioned in some of my videos, I am Croatian. Well, it's a long story, but I grew up, or rather spent my early childhood in Moscow. I'm fluent in Russian, half of my family is Russian. I was not born there, but I'm very familiar with the culture. I grew up in the early 90s there, and I just have a feeling of what Soviet or post-Soviet life is. And I can tell when someone is trying to emulate it rather to well, write it as it is / was. This is set in the near future, but it is deliberately very retro, and a lot of it is Soviet flavored, if we can describe it as that. I'm not saying that Reynolds didn't do his due diligence. I do think he read upon it as much as he could, but it feels detached. I don't think he ever talked to anyone in person who lived through it. I'm not saying he should have talked to a former cosmonaut, but just asking a few questions to a person who lived through such times would have been helpful. Reason number 3. Well, to sum it up, first 2 are maybe more superficial reasons, but in general I am disappointed, and not because this was awful, but because I expected to enjoy Reynolds' short fiction, because I do think his short fiction has this spark, has this impactful feeling. When you finish a story, it just hits you, or there is a build-up. There is no build-up here. There was no I'm about to read something that will blow my mind. Nothing of the sort. The characters, the few of them, were very flat. The writing was very detached. The prose almost felt a bit like he was writing nonfiction even. Maybe that's what he set out to do, but as a result, it left me cold. I do have to praise one thing. He deliberately set out to write a story, a space-age story, even though a bit of a cynical one, because it is kind of a failure. He set out to write a story that's not America-centric, but rather, well, Soviet-centric, Russia-centric. And I salute that. Ultimately, I think this novella fails because maybe I'm just not the target audience, but I do tend to enjoy this kind of writing, and I'm not above of enjoying a story that's more about ideas rather than characters. But I think the ideas were not super mind-blowing here. It was a rehash, a retro flavored rehash of the BDO story, Big Dumb Object story, that I'm very familiar with already. But not all is lost. If I would to give it a rating, I'd give it like 2 out of 5 maybe. However, there are more books coming. Some of them I already started to read, and I do think the next review will be much more positive. So thank you for watching, everyone, and hope to see you next time here. Bye.